One must first understand where I am coming from in order to understand where I am going. So I'm going to start with energy in forms we all recognize. But before I do that, let me explain a vortex or vortices that are just spiral or circular motions of fluids within a limited area. When we think of fluids, we think of things such as water, air, or gases, but there are molecules and particles much smaller that can create a vortex, and they appear to suck everything near it into and towards its center. A vortex can be seen in a spiraling motion of air or liquid around a center of rotation. The circular current of water of conflicting tides often form vortex shapes. Turbulent flow makes many vortexes. A good example of a vortex is the atmospheric phenomenon of a whirlwind or a tornado or a dust devil. These whirling air masses mostly take the form of a helix, column, or spiral. Tornadoes develop from severe thunderstorms, usually spawned from squall lines and supercell thunderstorms, though they sometimes happen as a result of a hurricane. In atmospheric physics, a mesovortex is on the scale of a few miles smaller than a hurricane, but larger than a tornado. On a much smaller scale, a vortex is usually formed as water goes down a drain, as in a sink or a toilet. This occurs in water as the revolving mass forms a whirlpool. This whirlpool is caused by water flowing out of a small opening in the bottom of a basin or reservoir. The swirling flow structure within a region of fluid flows open downward from the water surface. To understand how electrical activities occur, things like dust devils, which I will get into a little bit further down the road, can produce radio noise and electrical fields greater than 10,000 volts per meter. They pick up small dirt and dust particles. As the particles whirl around, they bump and scrape into each other and become electrically charged. The whirling charged particles also create a magnetic field that fluctuates between 3 and 30 times each second. To start our journey, we have to go back to Einstein to understand his theory of relativity. As Einstein suggested in his general theory of relativity, published in 1916, gravity can be described as the motion of objects following curved lines in space, or rather, space-time. The curved lines are caused by the presence of a mass. For example, our Earth or Sun. In other words, mass causes space-time to curve. Objects moving near that mass roll towards it, much as a ball would roll towards a heavy person sitting on a trampoline. What's more, as Earth spins, it should cause a twist in the fabric of space-time because they are all woven together, forming a four-dimensional fabric called space-time. Gravity, says Einstein, is simply the motion of objects following the curvaceous signs of the dimple. On May 4, 2011, researchers confirmed these points at a press conference at NASA headquarters where they announced the long-awaited results of Gravity Probe B. The space-time around Earth appears to be distorted just as general relativity predicts, says Stanford University physicist Francis Everett, principal investigator of the Gravity Probe B mission. Einstein was right. There is a space-time vortex around the Earth, and its shape precisely matches the predictions of Einstein's theory of gravity. But for now, let's concentrate on what we know and experience in our visual world. Before thunderstorms develop, a change in wind direction and an increase in wind speed with increasing height creates an invisible horizontal spinning effect in the lower atmosphere. Rising air within the thunderstorm updraft tilts the rotating air from horizontal to vertical. A waterspout is an intense columnar vortex, usually appearing as a funnel-shaped cloud that occurs over a body of water and is connected to a cumuliform cloud. In the common form, it is a non-supercell tornado over water. A whirlwind is a weather phenomenon in which a vortex of wind, a vertically oriented rotating column of air, forms due to instabilities and turbulence created by heating and flow current gradients. Whirlwinds occur all over the world and in any season. Whirlwinds are subdivided into two main types, the great or major whirlwinds and the lesser or minor whirlwinds. The first category includes tornadoes, waterspouts, and landspouts. The range of atmospheric vortices constitute a continuum and are difficult to categorize definitively. Some lesser whirlwinds may sometimes form in a similar manner to greater whirlwinds with related increase in intensity. These intermediate types include the gustando and the fire whirl. Other lesser whirlwinds include dust devils, as well as stream devils, snow devils, debris devils, leaf devils, and shear eddies, such as the mountainado and the eddy whirlwinds. A major whirlwind, such as a tornado, is formed from supercell thunderstorms, the most powerful type of thunderstorm, or other powerful storms. When the storms start to spin, they react with other high-altitude winds, causing a funnel to appear. A cloud forms over the funnel, making it invisible. A minor whirlwind is created when the local winds start to spin on the ground. This causes a funnel to form. The funnel moves over the ground, pushed up by the winds that first formed it. The funnel picks up materials such as dust or snow, or as it moves over the ground, thus becoming visible. Photographed by the Mars Global Surveyor, the long dark streak is formed by a moving, swirling column of Martian atmosphere. The dust devil itself, the black spot, is climbing the crater wall. The streaks on the right are sand dunes on the crater floor. Dust devils form when hot air nears the surface, rises quickly through a small pocket of cooler, low-pressure air above it. If conditions are just right, the air may begin to rotate. As the air rapidly rises, the column of hot air is stretched vertically, causing intensification of the spinning effect by conservation of angular momentum. The secondary flow in the dust devil causes other hot air or speed horizontally inward to the bottom of the newly forming vortex. As more hot air rushes in towards the developing vortex to replace the air that is rising, the spinning effect becomes further intensified and self-sustaining. A dust devil fully formed is a funnel-like chimney through which hot air moves both upward and in a circle. As the hot air rises, it cools, losing its buoyancy, and eventually ceases to rise. As it rises, it displaces air which descends outside the core of the vortex. This cool air returning acts as a balance against the spinning hot air outer walls and keeps the system stable. The spinning effect, along with the surface friction, usually will produce a forward momentum. The dust devil is able to sustain itself longer by moving over nearby sources of hot surface air. In other words, dust devils are small-scale rotations on the ground, not associated with severe weather or tornado-producing thunderstorms. The swirling air is made visible by dust or dirt on the ground, which means that they are more common in areas with loose dirt or sand. As the ground heats up, in hot areas of the United States and abroad, the rising air can create a vortex that picks up the loose soil and whirls them into the air. This convection will lead to the formation of a slow-moving and usually harmless swirls of moving air. While some dust devils can cause minor damage, most are just an interesting convection process of the weather typical in hot and arid climates. Now let us go into the electromagnetic field, because this is where we are heading. In the hydrodynamic interpretation of the behavior of electromagnetic fields, the acceleration of electric fluid in a particular direction creates a positive vortex of magnetic fluid. This in turn creates around itself a corresponding negative vortex of electric fluid. The electromagnetic field, also known as EMF, is composed of two related vectorial fields, the electric field and the magnetic field. If the electric field is non-zero and is consistent in time, the field is said to be electrostatic field. Electric charges act either as sources or sinks of the electric fluid. An electron is constantly absorbing electric fluid around it. Protons are the reverse. They constantly pour electric liquid towards the surrounding space, so liquid moves away from the proton. Magnetic liquid, on the other hand, has no sources or sinks. Nothing can pour out or suck up magnetic fluid. Magnetic fluid is incompressible, which means that its density does not change. Electric fluid is also incompressible, but it has sources and sinks. If magnetic fluid is standing still, it can be stirred up, making it move in closed circles and closed loops of vertical motion. For the magnetic fluid to keep moving in the same loop, some force has to keep stirring it up. Otherwise, the energy of its circular motion will dissipate and the magnetic fluid will stop moving and will return to rest. If electric fluid starts to accelerate in a certain direction, it will cause a vortex of magnetic fluid to move in circles around the direction in which the electric fluid is accelerating. As soon as the electric fluid stops accelerating, the vortex of magnetic fluid vanishes. Electric fluid will not accelerate spontaneously. Something has to force it to accelerate. The same thing then causes indirectly the magnetic vortex to be stirred up. A magnetic vortex will not arise spontaneously. If magnetic fluid accelerates in a certain direction, it causes electric fluid to move in a vortex with circles around their direction of acceleration in the direct opposite to the right-hand rule. Summarily, an acceleration of the electric fluid causes a positive vortex of magnet liquid to move around it, but an acceleration of the magnetic liquid causes a negative vortex of electric liquid to flow around it. Electrically charged particles are constantly emitting or absorbing photonic fluid, which is more commonly known as light. Electromagnetic waves are movement patterns of light which can always be observed to be emitted by electrical charges undergoing acceleration. If a charged particle is at rest, then it does not emit EM waves. Instead, it is surrounded by an electrostatic field. If the charged particle is in inertial motion, then the electrostatic field is joined by a magnetic static field, which these pair of static fields produce a movement of EM energy, which is similar to an EM wave, except that the fields are not oscillating. EM waves are propagating, expanding, harmonic, oscillating accelerations of the photonic fluid. Since the photonic fluid itself moves at the speed of light, then EM waves can move no faster than the speed of light. EM waves move at a speed close to the speed of light, depending on the medium through which they move, such as through water, and faster through water than through glass. Since the molecules of magnets are smaller than the molecules of light, they can continue on through solid matter such as iron or rock, whereas the electric fluid cannot. The behavior of the EM field can be resolved into 4 different parts of a loop. 1. The electric and magnetic fields are generated by electric charges. 2. The electric and magnetic fields interact only with each other. 3. The electric and magnetic fields produce forces on electric charges. And 4. The electric charges move in space. Now we are to the core of the matter. Universal law is static, non-changing. It applies to everything in the universe. With this in mind, we can move one step further in going outside of our familiarities, as shown in the photos of natural phenomenon, to the possibilities of spirit consciousness vortices, the vortex activity that causes the appearance of orbs, veils, and other anomalies. We know frequency vibration is the electromagnetic field. We know the reason we can see light or experience fluorescence. We can easily now assume that the orbs that appear are possible because of these frequencies, and now we can explain why certain orbs tend to have holes or look skeletal in nature may only be a result of areas of frequencies that are not as strong as those around them, or have not yet gained their strength, or have already started to dissipate into a rested state. There are more articles to help you understand electrons, neutrons, protons, ions, and photons on this page of the site, should you want to delve further into the scientific possibilities.